Are we taping right now?
Yeah, I started recording.
So I'd like to call our regular council meeting Tuesday, March 26th to order, respectfully acknowledging that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Quagga people, Segala Castle. May I have approval of the agenda as amended with the new business of the audit planning report? Moved by Councillor Texnall, seconded by Councillor Dugas. All in favor? Carried. So we have the minutes of our regular council meeting held March 12th for adoption. Moved by Councillor Dugas, seconded by Councillor Tidbury. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Carried. We have no business arising. Sorry, we have no delegations. Moving on to business arising, our council action item report for March 12th for information. Any comments? I wanted to say we've got a lot of action and things have been completed and are ongoing. So thank you very much for everyone's work. We have accessibility committee advertising and landing page for information. CEO Nelson Smith, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, if I could. We have a landing page. We've put out a notice of expression for interest for committee members from all over the North Island to join our accessibility committee. And it's a great opportunity to help shape accessibility decisions in the future. And this will be done on a regional approach. So it'll be done for all of Northern Ireland municipalities and local governments. And so anybody from Port Alice, Port McNeill, the Regional District of Wellington, Port Hardy, join us at the team and get your expressions in by the 2nd. And then we have set it up so that there's a subscription service as well. So there will be surveys and things going out. So even if you don't join the accessibility committee, there will be opportunities to participate in the accessibility shaping.
Thank you. Any comments? Thank you. We have a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole of December 12th, where Fran Hutchinucci, Executive Director of the Aboriginal Coalition Day and Homelessness Society, read the Aboriginal Coalition Day and Homelessness Society in Port Hardy. And the request to council was that the district provide land and a member of the council be appointed to the Sinala Culturally Supportive Housing Society. So the member has been appointed, the member is myself, and now they're coming forward with an ask for land. So on the agenda on Friday was a memorandum of agreement, and it was taken off the agenda over on Monday just because there was a clause in the memorandum of agreement about there's been an in-camera discussion. So we wanted to have a talk with the society about that clause, and we didn't want to be hindering anything and breaking any rules or anything like that. So as the CAO and I both agree that this discussion should be in public, and so the society has said that we could what's called redlining it and take that clause out of the agreement. So now it's the opportunity to discuss part of the meeting that Councillor Robertson, the CEO, and myself had with the Sinala Culturally Supportive Housing Society and Weiser Consulting, who is being hired by the society to help procure land and push this forward. So at the meeting we had, they looked at all the district of Port Hardy land and came up with the suggested piece of property that's on this map here. And so this piece of property.
There's nothing here. Hold on.
So the piece of property is on the way into town. It's on the right-hand side of the highway. It's just before Applewood, and it at the back end, it borders a creek. And it so there's a natural barrier to the residential properties below it. C.L. Nelson Smith, what else am I missing?
I'm just gonna pull it up on the screen so that everybody can see it. So if I could. I'll
Yes.
Now that it's up on the screen and everybody can see it. So it is this property here. So this is the old McMillan Bodell subdivision site. This is where the new McDonald's is. This is where the mall is across the street, and then the hospital is right directly across the street as well. So this property that we currently have here is used as just an entrance to the community. We have gardens, and the banner is on this property at this point in time. This property offers, as the district owns this property, but it's also one of the only pieces that the district owns that is in close proximity to all of the amenities that are required for supportive housing. That being access to support services, transit, food, walkable distances. It's fairly flat through that area. Now granted, if you're coming through the backside, you can actually get a fairly flat crawl back to that particular property if you don't come up Granville Street. So it checks all of the boxes with regards to supportive housing. And this is one of the sites that we had identified a number of years ago when we were talking to BC Housing as well with regards to supportive housing within the district of Port Hardy. It also offers a natural buffer because the services for this property for water, sewer, and drainage actually all run along this portion, which would actually remain treed and act as a buffer between the two. The request for the land for this particular one and the memorandum of understanding doesn't legally bind the district to provide this piece of land at the end of the day. What this memorandum of understanding does is it allows the Sinala Culturally Supportive Housing to be able to investigate to see if this property is even viable for that purpose. And so they would actually do all of the work similar to what the Seniors Housing Foundation did with Property Fund Trustee. We identified a lot. They got some seed funding. They went up and decided whether or not what they'd be able to build, what services were required, and then they came up with a budget. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, they weren't successful in their application, but that memorandum of understanding allowed them to be able to output that money and seek grant funding in order to support them to be able to do those investigations. So in this particular regard, the memorandum of understanding would basically be the council would agree that over the next 2 years, we wouldn't offer this property up to anybody else, and we'd allow the Sinala Culturally Supportive Housing to investigate to see if it was viable, and then open up discussions at a later date as to whether or not we were going to lease that land for the long term. The memorandum of understanding also allows us a clause to get out of that agreement, so if something else changed, the council has an opportunity to cancel the agreement as well with notice.
Comments. So before we continue on, I just want to say, I am a director on the society appointed by the District of Port Hardy. I've talked to CAO Nelson Smith about potential conflict of interest and if I should withdraw from the discussion or any voting or anything like that. And so I'm leaving it up to you. She said, because I'm appointed by the council, I have a fiduciary responsibility to the district, but as well, I am one of the director on the society as well. So if all of you feel I have a conflict, I will leave. If you'd like me to stay, I will stay.
Yeah, I think there's no personal conflict of interest here, and you're acting in the interest of the best of the community, and it's a great program, and we're glad that you're willing to be a director on the board. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I support that. No problem.
I
No
support
problem.
that too.
I'll make the motion to accept this memorandum of understanding.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or?
I just think it's a great opportunity for us to be a part of this project. And we're very fortunate that we have land available that we can do this. And that's awesome. I guess one question that I had, just to, maybe you can follow up, that when you looked at all the property that was, I don't know that Heather mentioned that, that this seemed to be the best piece of property that we had to be able to house this particular project, right? I mean, for all that we looked at, I mean, that seems like it's the logical one to pick at this particular time.
The consulting firm, Wiser's Consulting, have done a lot of looking at procurement of lands and building properties and stuff like that. And so with the seed funding that they're hoping to apply for, or they plan to apply for, if the memorandum of agreement is approved, one of the things is proximity to hospitals and medical. And this is all in a walking distance, and it's all very close. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness has been very successful in Victoria and South Island, and they have, I think, are operating 3 separate facilities at this point. And just how appreciative we are of their first foray into going outside of that area is to North Island, and also to thank Fran, who is from this area, and for her work doing it. And both the society and Fran are, the movers and behind this, and we're greatly appreciative of it.
A lot of confidence in the people running it.
Yeah.
They've done
And
well.
which is why they are looked upon well when it comes to grants and money.
Very fortunate that it's coming to our first community outside Victoria. Very fortunate.
And at the very fact that the Sinala Culturally Supportive Housing Society, when the application was made in December with only 3 directors, got $500,000 for capacity building. So a temporary executive director has been hired, financial officer has been hired, an executive assistant has been hired. People are being trained on the rental subsidies, and it's because of Fran's reputation, I'm sure of it, is why things are happening so quickly, and pretty amazing, actually. Okay, so
We need a vote.
we need a vote. We have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, under new business, CAO Nelson Smith, regarding the UBCM Local Government Service Community to Community Forum funding for 2024. So there's a recommendation that council support and apply for funding through the UBCM Community to Community Forum funding to continue dialogue and improve relations with our First Nations communities throughout 2024. Councillor Tidbury,
I'll make that recommendation.
Second it.
any comments or questions?
Maybe some people just don't realize that, Pat or Mayor, if you could just maybe explain a little bit of what we've been doing already and how we would like to continue this in the future.
So the community to community, or what we affectionately call C2C, which is much easier to say, means that we can bring our other elected councillors and chiefs from the nations around us and meet and discuss issues and concerns and how we better work together. So far we've had 2, one with the Kwaigilth and one with the Guasawa Napata, and we have another one planned with the Kwaigilth next week, I believe. And when Councillor Dugas and I have been at some other meetings, the Quatsino have also mentioned that they would really like to be meeting with us too. So this just continues with our meeting and how we can work together. All right. All in favor? Carried. We have Chad Melissa votes chartered professional accountants regarding our audit planning report for the year ending December 31st, 2023.
Mhm.
Are they going to speak to it, or is our director of finance going to speak to us?
Yeah, this is for information that they're coming in the plan that they're gonna do while they're here. They're on site right now. I received this on Friday and wasn't sure if it was just to get emailed to you to read, or if it was part of the agenda. So that's why the late submission. So it's, when it does come time, they will be doing the presentation for the financial statements and going through in depth the ARO for sure. And we pushed it, as you can see the timing, like they're doing field work right now, but we pushed it as far as we can close to May when you have to upload everything, just to have time to make sure that the ARO is compliant. The asset retirement obligations.
Mhm.
We're gonna get to know that word really well.
Okay. Every meeting you go to, everybody goes.
Can't avoid it.
So we have a recommendation that the audit planning report for the year ending December 31st, 2023 be accepted as presented.
I'll
Moved by
make that
Councillor
motion.
Dugas, seconded by Councillor Tippert. All in favor?
Mhm.
Carried. Under correspondence from JB Hind regarding a fundraiser Times columnist 10K in support of suicide awareness. Councillor Dugas, did you have to have?
Oh,
something?
no, well, I'll make a comment later, but I think that it's, the information that's been given to us is pretty good. If, any explanation, I'm sure that our CAO can provide
We do have the policy,
that. Mhm,
which is for sports teams and non-sport teams.
mhm.
And so this would be a non-sport team application.
Yeah. The only comment that I have, Mayor, was that the fact that, that sometimes when we talk about individuals asking for support, they're usually going to a competition of some sort, representing our area, or there's it could be the dancing group or whatever, they're representing them, they go for competition. Unfortunately, this is not a competition, this is an event. And, so I don't know if it actually even falls within the parameters of our policy. That's what I'm wondering. So I just needed some clarification with that moving forward, whether I could be supportive of it or not.
CEO Nelson.
I guess some of the questions that we had as well here at the office was, we are missing a few of the pieces. So they have 50 participants that are signed up in their group that are going to take part, and the fundraising that they're doing will go towards their hotel, travel, and food. So they have provided the information of how many participants, they have provided that what the fundraising efforts are going to. They've also identified what it's for. So I guess the only question that we're missing currently is, with this, I think that this would fall under like a non-team sport event, which is the second portion of the policy and not the first portion, because it's not a organized team sport, but it is, running is still an activity acted on an individual. And then, of course, they have already provided the letter noting the details of the event that they're going to attend. I guess part of the reason why we also put this on here too is, do we need to make any kind of amendments to allow for something other than a sport, or do we need to define what sport is? And then the only thing that I would say that they probably just have missed is just the portion regarding any other financial assistance that they've received. So at this point in time, I guess the question is running 50 people running for an event of suicide awareness that is being organized down island for people to attend, would that be classified as a sport? And if so, then I leave that to council to tell you your interpretations.
Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, in looking again at the non-team sport application, when you start looking at 1, 2, 3, and 4,
Mhm.
it talks about an event. It doesn't talk about sporting event, it just says an event. Now, and you could argue that a run is a sporting event, but anyway, I don't see this as being inconsistent with their request for under the second one, the non-team sport applications. I think there's an argument to be made for the team sport application too. But certainly, I don't have a problem with donating a account with this, and I'm happy to make that motion.
Any other comments? Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Councilor Darwin?
What's the amount?
250.
But yeah,
I'm sorry.
250.
And yeah, it is a bit ambiguous, this policy. And, you know, I feel that as, you know, it's a person in charge of the community purse, I feel like the community would want us to support this. So with the ambiguity, together with that, but I do think we should clean up this policy.
Agreed. So I just want to make another comment, and it's not in the letter from Jamie, but I do know that they're doing other fundraising. They've got fundraising happening fairly soon, where they've got a Looney auction happening and other auction happening, and just to raise funds, because we all know it's expensive to go down there and if 50 people at hotels or 50 people with food and stuff. So. Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor. Any other comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Councilor Dugas? Carried. Peter Sinclair, Executive Director, Loaves and Fishes Community Food Bank, regarding the Loaves and Fishes Warehouse Project letter of support for ratification. So the recommendation is that the district send a letter to the Honorable Sean Fraser, Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities, in support of the Loaves and Fishes Warehouse Project and the need for food security in Port Hardy. So we've ratified, or we moved and seconded and approved this by email, and this is just for ratification. Moved by Councilor Tidbury, seconded by Councilor Dugas. Any comments? Carried. So I had mentioned, I'm just gonna make one comment. I had mentioned that to Peter, because I know him personally. I had asked him if he had sent this to the other mayors in the North Island, and he said he didn't know them and didn't have their information. Anyways, when I mentioned it at the RD meeting last week, or the last RD meeting, I talked about it, and subsequently I forwarded his request to the three mayors, the RD chair, and as well to the mayor and Zavellas. And they all said, thank you. So hopefully they also write letters. Okay, Adam Cooper with BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant Program, the Columbia Huddleston Trail Connector for information. Hooray!
Yeah.
So, CEO Nelson Smith, do you want to just explain what that means?
Yeah, so when we did our active transportation plan back in 2020, we had quite a few areas that were identified as being not connected to the rest of the community. We've completed one, which is the Granville Trustee Connector. And then the next one that was on the docket is this sidewalk, or this crosswalk to nowhere that happens to be across the street coming over from Columbia Court, coming to the municipal hall, and who knows what you're supposed to do after that. So all of that will be cleaned up. There will be a sidewalk that will run in front of the municipal hall. Parking will be changed a little bit here. Those little delineators that we currently have out there that are not very pretty, out in front of the building will be removed. We'll have some lighting and some benches that will then connect you to the rec center, and then inevitably to the Huddleston Trail.
yes.
And so there's some trees that'll go in there as well, so that'll really beautify this section of town too, and kind of draw a little bit of attention. But one of the things that I just wanted to highlight is when I went to go take the photos, so we've applied for this particular section 3 times. This is the 3rd time we've been unsuccessful. I would like to thank whoever the mother was that was walking with her child and their youngest one and one in the stroller. As they're coming through the parking lot, I was taking photos and I said, can I take photos of you walking precariously through the parking lot? She said, it is quite scary because you don't know where people are going or anything else, and you don't know where you should walk. So I really think it was probably the photos that I took of her and her child kind of precariously wandering through all of the parked cars trying to find their way that helped us get that. So
Well done.
Well done, yes. So no committee reports, but we have staff reports from our Happy Nelson Smith CAO regarding a temporary use permit, TUP 01-2024 at 6710 Beaver Cove Highway.
yeah, so I'll just kind of highlight a couple of things here now that I've lost it off of my screen. Sorry. So as you may be aware, or may or not be aware, we currently have CCANs as a prohibited use in our zoning regulation as an accessory structure in any, unless it's specified in a zone. We currently don't have CCANs specified in any zone as being a permitted use. And so we were approached by this individual business to put CCANs on the property. It is in a marine industrial zone in order to accommodate a temporary office as well as an ice plant to be able to keep up their operations. So one of the things that we've done just kind of also in advance of this is we get a lot of requests for CCANs. And so you'll also be seeing in the future a report coming from us on how to better navigate this going forward into the future, because this is becoming the norm, and creating some provisions in commercial and industrial zones in order to be able to permit them without having to go through this temporary use permit process. But given that that's going to take just a little bit more time, we put this applicant into this direction. So at this point in time, they would be looking at the 2 CCANs going onto the property. It is already zoned marine industrial. We've sent the notices to the properties in the area. We've published it in the newspaper. We haven't received any feedback whatsoever with regards to opposition to it. And so staff has recommended that we approve temporary use permit 01-2024 with respect to the property at Lot A, Section 32 and Plan VIP 552210, where CCANs are not listed as a permitted accessory use under any zone in Port Hardy zoning regulation, and is defined under this permit as follows, that the structures must conform to all zoning requirements with respect to siting setbacks in the current BC building regulations as required, and that the temporary use permit expire on March 31st, 2027. And you may recall within the report, I also talk about how long a temporary use permit can be permitted, and 3 years is the maximum that temporary use permit can be permitted. They can then apply for a second temporary use permit to have that extended up to an additional 3 years. So there's a couple options for the council to consider: approve the permit with any additional requirements, or deny the permit.
Motion to approve is presented.
Seconded by Councilor Robertson. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Again, our CAO, Health and Nelson Smith, regarding housing legislation update.
Yeah. So I've also included in your report a lot of documentation for you to peruse at your own leisure, if you so wish to. I have had a look at our zoning regulation, and so I'll just walk through it just a little bit here. So the housing, the two bills that came forward were bills 43 and 44. And so there's a couple of different things that are required for different sizes of local government, and then there's things that apply to all local governments. So to all local governments, we do need to update our housing needs report by January 1st, 2025. And we also aren't allowed to hold public hearings in relation to zoning bylaws, where the sole purpose is to meet the requirements of the new housing legislation. And the new housing legislation would be residential. So basically, they're putting a prohibition on local governments holding public hearings. So when we go to zone a property commercial to residential, there will be no requirement to have a public hearing at that point in time. Sorry.
Sorry, there has been much discussion with mayors and other elected officials with the ministry about that.
Correct. So as part of the housing needs report that we do need to do, we also need to have that housing needs report reflected in an official community plan with targets being done by December 31st of 2025. So that means that we have to have our housing targets included inside our official community plan, which now will put that official community plan projecting for housing needs into the future. And then all of our zoning bylaws and official community plans need to ensure that they are all aligned with the official community plan, including those housing needs by December 31st. And then there's what we affectionately refer to as SMUH, which is the small scale multi-unit housing. And this deadline is for June 30th of 2024. And this is pertaining to secondary suites. So for a community that is under 5,000, you must permit secondary suites and or an accessory dwelling unit on every residential property within your community. The District of Port Hardy currently already has zoning in place in all of our zones where we allow a secondary suite or a carriage home on the property. And in our R2 zoning, we actually allow for a secondary suite and a carriage home on a property. So you can actually have 3 units on that. The things that won't apply to us, but are optional for council to consider, are the 3 to 4 units on a single family zone. And so those would be any kind of multi-unit housing. So that would mean that all of your R1, so if you lived in a community that was over 5,000, they will be subject to having to change their zoning requirements to allow for multiple units. And that could mean that you have a residential neighborhood that you've deemed residential 1, which typically residential 1 is your single family, not very many extra units, now could end up having 3 and 4 plexes put up next to you. And then the other thing that has come forward is 6 units for frequent bus services. This will probably never apply to Port Hardy because the bus has to run every 15 minutes. So we probably don't know. That's why I only put it in there as just so you know, these are the optional things that you can go forward. So we did receive some funding, $169,000 in January to support projects related to the new housing legislation. I put a whole list in there of what is available, but I bolded the ones that are pertaining to the District of Port Hardy that staff have identified as needing to be looked at. So we've got the housing needs report, and then encompassing the official community plan with the housing needs report, potential zoning bylaw changes that might come out of that housing needs report, a works and services bylaw. I will highlight that ours is currently 1999 and quite aged. I don't know if we have the time to get that done, but I've highlighted it as this is something that needs to get done at some point. Asset management plans or strategies. So just trying to identify whether or not we even have capacity for increasing population growth in certain areas. And then condition and risk assessments. So those can be done on water and sewer infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure, et cetera. And so staff has identified the housing needs report, the official community plan, the planning for available lands is another one as well that we're looking for quotes on. And that would be taking all of the inventory of the District of Port Hardy lands, as we've discussed, and ensuring that we know what the servicing cost will be for those, what the potential market value is if we were to sell them, what the rent could be on said property if we were to lease them, but also kind of gives us a better package so that when we have nonprofit organizations coming and looking for housing, or if the district was interested in building our own housing, we would have a better idea as to what the upfront cost would be on individual lots. And then, so then I'll just go to my concerns, which obviously managing capacity is always a primary consideration for these initiatives, and we anticipate potential limitations in accessing planners. Right now there's a shortage in BC. So to address this, we have initiated the process of soliciting quotations for both the housing needs report and land identification and planning already to ensure that we're ready to go. And I think that was
Councillor.
Yeah, thanks for the study. I think a lot of it is for communities over 5,000, but clearly it's good. Thank you for showing the parts that are applicable to all. Actually, I just lost it. The only comment I had, and it's more by way of a question, is with respect to the housing needs report. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think, didn't we partner with other communities on the North Island to do that housing needs report? And won't we be doing that again, sort of thing? To defray some of the costs, but to make a larger pool to do it.
So I have a couple of comments to that. So the housing needs report that was done, so we're currently at the expiration date. This is the last year that the housing needs report is valid. We did partner. It wasn't a lot of information that was really useful for Port Hardy. I'm not being disparaging. It just, unfortunately, it wasn't encompassing to us specifically. There was really no talk to the homeless or the supportive housing. And given that our community is so vastly different than the other communities of the North Island, it gives us an opportunity to really hone in and come up with those policies going forward. We have a quotation right now at roughly around $45,000. That's currently what we paid to pay into the other report that happened back 5 years ago. But this would give us a fulsome report just directly towards the district.
Okay, well, good to know, thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Do we have our OCP yet?
So we have all of the policies are all
Oh,
done. And
fantastic.
so all of that information is just going to be just piling it all together with the housing needs report as well, just to kind of get it all.
So it all kind of works.
Yes.
Sorry.
So I know that Mount Washington Health Network is planning on doing another homeless count and report using the same service provider that did it before. And I'm sure that you've been in touch with them about tying it in.
Different process.
No, but it would tie in with the housing.
Mhm.
So I think he's planning on starting it pretty soon. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Moving on to current bylaws and resolutions, we have bylaw number 1172-2024, user rates and fees for 2024 amendment bylaw for adoption. Moved by Councillor Tipperary, seconded by Councillor Dugas. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. We have bylaw number 1173-2024, financial plan bylaw for 2024-2028 for first, second, and third readings. Councillor Tipperary, moved, seconded by Councillor Dugas. Does our Director of Finance want to make any comment?
Very happy.
Thank you. So the presentation was the public presentation was recently conducted, and so no, it's very well done. So all in favor? Carried. We have heading bylaw that's been there for a little while. Council reports. Councillor Tipperary.
Put the Beata.
And that's all you're going to say?
That's all I'm going to say.
Get a nice tan out of it.
You did.
And we had a good time
A fantastic time.
and
Family time.
well deserved break. You've been very busy.
You get that right.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. March 13th, attended the Port Hardy Heritage Society meeting. They're doing quite well. The curator there has a grant spreadsheet going, so she's just keeping track of all the different grants that are available. And now with the tourism services, there's a lot more opportunities. So I think we're pretty fortunate to have such a, someone to be able to pivot like that. So it's pretty great. She's working on summer students right now, and it's membership renewal time that gives you a discount at the gift store. So just a reminder to everyone. So
Intent.
yes. March 18th. So yes, it's Bear Smart Week. We had our meeting, and so our bears are going to be waking up here pretty quick.
Are awake.
They are awake. Oh, you've seen some activity. They are awake. So as Heather was mentioning earlier on at our committee of the whole, there's going to be a presentation tomorrow at the library at 6 p.m. And you also get to name the bear, which is kind of cool that the library is doing that. And you'll get to learn all about how humans can help prevent our bears from being destroyed or getting habituated to eating garbage, or because it's a lot of work to be out there eating calories all day. They need a lot of calories, and it takes a lot of effort to eat grass and whatever. Where you garbage, there's a lot of calories in garbage. So I do encourage you, if you have the time, to come on out and yeah, some more bear smart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Just one small note,
Yes.
we have a tourism meeting tomorrow.
Oh.
I don't know if she knows that we have it yet. Whether we should notify her.
Oh, I will let Robin know. Thank you. Yeah, good. point.
Yes,
Oh,
noontime.
Noon tomorrow.
Is that's the regional one, right?
Yes,
That's here, right?
yes.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yeah, it's, I don't think we put her on the list yet because it was all sort of up in the air for a moment there. But it would be nice to see her at those
That
meetings.
might be a strategic appointment, right? Yeah. Thanks.
Councillor Texwell.
I don't really have much to report, other than it's sad to see the ice will be gone. But I will be going to the youth conference tomorrow that the Tri Nations are hosting at the Quality List. So I'm excited for that. And I just kind of want to reiterate that it's been really heartwarming to see how much the nations and everyone are getting together for the youth and putting on all kinds of events regarding recreation and cultural and arts. It's great. But other than that, I don't have anything to report.
Thank you. Councillor Dugas.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a couple things. BC Hydro on March the 13th, they had a meeting, and it was basically called BC Hydro Residential Rate Options. So they're starting to put together some rate options for us in the North Island, because we've always been going to UBCM, always talking about tier 1, tier 2, and how we're all getting nailed. And they're looking at the different options of maybe providing us with like a flat rate or a fixed bill plus or a peak charge or a number of different options. So whether you can do it like in the evening or use it to figure it out anyways. But so one of the questions that came up was, okay, they're trying to convince everybody they want to do electrification for British Columbia. What about heat pumps? When people put heat pumps in and stuff like that, they're switching over from one source of heat to another source, whether it's getting rid of their gas or their diesel fuel or whatever, some type of fuel, switching over there. But sometimes in some locations, those costs don't necessarily are less, but sometimes it'd be more. And what's the incentive for people that are willing to flip over to electrification, whether or not their bills would indicate that it's a good thing, but don't overcharge us because we're doing a good thing. So that was a pretty interesting conversation. I was quite surprised it was supposed to start at 9 in the morning and it went to 12:30. And as you can see by my notes, it was actually really interesting. It was very interesting. A lot of great discussion. There was a report done by a company down in Oregon that actually did the report. And they looked at all these different areas. And it's called the Bradle Report. If you go on BC Hydro site, you'll be able to look at that. It's a 38-page document, and it talks about all the different things that some of the bigger areas are using to make sure that the customers are happy about what they're doing. And they have a choice how they want to pay for their hydro usage. So I thought that was great. Another thing, I was at a Vintas marketing meeting. We have them once a month. Megan Hanasek, she puts them on, but some of the things I would like to highlight is there's a lot of videos that you can go watch on myvancouverislandnorth.ca, and they're very, very well done. Very, very, very well done. There's a lot of them on there, newer ones that Keith actually put together, or Jeff, I guess it's Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff
Yeah.
Heath. He put together, very good, excellent, very excellent. Talking about different things that are happening on the North Island and talking to individual people, right? Which is kind of really cool. The other thing that would be of interest to us too is they have a calendar now on that site that when we were talking about our recreation new spring guide, it could go on that. And that would be very good too, to get out to the whole region, right? So I think that's great. They also have a housing portal now where if somebody's renting or whatever, and they want to put their rental on there, that they could put their rental on there, or people that are willing to, that are thinking about selling or whatever, there's a portal there for that too, which is regional, which I think is a great idea. The fundamental program, the next phase is gonna start in April. So there's 12, I believe 12 students that are gonna be down in WAS, and they're gonna be taking the forestry fundamental course and getting that moving again. We don't know exactly, well, how that's all gonna play out in the fall, because some of the funding that we were supposed to get might be debatable moving forward, but so far it's been pretty successful with regards to people getting trained. RD board meeting, we had obviously a board meeting and we talked about a lot of stuff, but some of the things that basically came up was mostly for the electoral areas, you know, they were talking about the budgeting and all the different costs that are gonna be charged out for all the different areas. I mean, there was a lot of them. I know that the mayor and I get to vote on them, but really it doesn't affect us at all. So it kind of makes you feel kind of funny. You're voting on charging by WAS in different areas like that. You go, well, okay, well, we have to vote, so we vote. But yeah, I mean, it was all good. There was a presentation done. I mean, Mayor will probably maybe remember what that was about, but a lot of interesting topics that were going on at PRD. And they're still, obviously, like we are, looking for employees, right? Unfortunately, Jackie Chows, our ECDev person down at the RD, had to leave for health reasons, so she's left the RD
No.
now. Yes, she had to leave.
Oh.
And so in the interim, we dragged Pat English out of retirement again, so he's back helping us until we could get a new ECDev person at the RD. Yeah, we all did. She was great, but unfortunately she had to leave. So yeah, and they're looking for finance people, whatever. So, well, you know, we are doing here too, recreation, whatever. So all good. And I think that was it. Yeah. And we're in spring now. So hopefully everybody gets out and has an opportunity to enjoy that and look at all the flowers. I talk to my daughter regularly. She lives in Edmonton, and the other day I sent her some pictures of all our flowers blooming in our yard, and then she said, "Okay, Dad," and she sent me one of hers. 3 inches of snow in the backyard. So we are fortunate where we live. That's for sure. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Robertson.
Thanks. The annoying pictures from coastal people to people who have to survive winter. Yeah, personally, I've never done that. So I was at a Foundry meeting, and interesting things happening with Foundry. March was the busiest, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but the busiest month they've had so far. And they are continuing to hire as well. And they will be expanding to Port McNeill, a satellite operation into Port McNeill shortly as well, within the next month. Probably the biggest news was that they're going to enter into the phase 2 in the expansion this fall. So that planning is happening as we speak, and the work should begin in the fall. I'm not sure which month. So that's going ahead, and we'll go ahead. The funding is in place for it, and so onwards with that. I was at the Vancouver Island Regional Library executive meeting, just going forward with planning. But as Noreen mentioned in her presentation, one of the big surprises this year was the increased levy, significant increased levy from the regional library. It was significant, and a lot of communities were concerned about it. It was a legacy issue from past administration and finances, how the finances were run, and the board has to wear some of that as well, clearly, and I've been on that board. But one of the things coming out of this executive committee was establishing an audit and finance committee to better oversee the audit process, which there were some things that were missed before. So that's ongoing, and hopefully we won't see those kind of levy increases from the library board again. And I was also at the Sinala Housing, the planning, which was discussed earlier tonight. So that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Dodd?
Thank you. I attended the Table of Partners breakfast along with Mayor Corbett Labatt. There was a lot of people there representing a lot of different agencies. We have a lot of people working, I think, largely behind the scenes on various aspects to bring healthcare to the North Island, all sorts of healthcare. So it's good to go and see it in person. Had an AVI-CC executive meeting. The next one is immediately before the conference, which is in 2.5 weeks on April 12th to 14th. Who's all going? You're not going?
I'm not going.
Brian, are you going? Too bad. Oh, you guys are gonna miss out. We got a great agenda. And one of them is the Aboriginal Coalition to End Homelessness as part of the housing. So,
Fantastic.
yeah,
Wow.
so we'll hear from Fran there. And then also met just on a nonpartisan basis with the provincial Conservative candidate for our area, Dr. Anna Kindy. And her and her husband were actually both physicians here in the early 90s. Anyone remembers them?
Name?
Anna Kindy and her husband's P.
I was gonna say Mark. Oh.
Her husband.
He's a plastic.
Probably by the same name, eh?
Probably.
Sorry.
Kids, yeah, I remember that name.
Yeah. Anyway, so they knew the North Island, like
Mhm.
Port Hardy
Okay.
area really well, so. Interesting to talk to them and had a few conversations about different healthcare aspects and stuff that insider, she's a addiction specialist now, I think she said.
Was, or, and he's a
Yeah.
plastic surgeon.
And I met with our local ML there too. Oh, I forgot to mention, seems,
How many times?
Dale.
Yeah.
Katie.
Anyway, I just thought that was interesting that the candidate had lived up here, so. That's it for me.
Thank you. So, like Councillor Dorwood and our CEO Nelson Smith attended the Mount Wellington Table of Partners breakfast conference, and that was really interesting and good to connect over breakfast. And it was a lovely breakfast at the Qualilus. I attended the Guani project in Port McNeill, which was very interesting. And it's a project that could be a landmark way of going forward with tenure and forestry practices with the Numkeys, Western Forest Products, and the Ministry of Forestry all working together to look at parcels of land that are in the Numkeys territory. And now it's going up to the Chief Forester for final approval to see if they approve it. Then it was very interesting, and the maps were was good. So the Numkeys are very happy with it. The Ministry of Forests is very happy with it. There was a lot of people there, and it was good. I have been attending the weekly North Island Youth /mental/holistic health supports with probably about 30 or 40 people, depending on how many people show up, that are called by the Three Nations health directors, and going and just listening on how everybody's working together. One of the supports they've had asked for was a project coordinator, because there's someone, everyone's doing it off the side of their desk, trying to help out as much as they can. And when I was at the meeting last Monday, they were that close to signing the contract with the project, a potential project coordinator, and she will, I'm assuming it's going to be her, but will be fantastic. Just an amazing person. I have been working with the Sinala Housing, Culturally Safe Housing, or Supportive Housing Society. sometimes I think my head is spinning because Fran is such a go-getter that every day there's something else that has this been done, has this been done, has this been done, and everything is moving forward so quickly. It's pretty interesting, and I think we're very fortunate that we have someone like Fran who is such a go-getter and such positive role model. At the RD meeting, which has been really, really interesting the last little while, but I think talking at the hospital district meeting and with the upcoming renovations on both the hospitals and updating them, Stantec will be doing both sites. They approved that one, and we have 2 new physicians that have started working in Port Hardy with Highland Health. They're starting to work in ER as well. And new RNs have been hired, and they're training RNs in the emergency. The LPNs are filled up the positions at Eagle Ridge. So it's all good news. Still not enough trained RNs to get our ER open. But every meeting I say, we want it 24/7. We want it 24/7. So they hear that at AVICC. Mayor Fernie and Mayor Buchanan from Alert Bay and from Port McNeil, we're meeting with Island Health chairman of the board and the president of the hospital as well to, again, lobby hard for our communities. And people have asked me, why is Port McNeil the one that's open 24/7 and why isn't Port Hardy? Because we're bigger. And I get it, we are bigger. However, I just want to remind people that they're still not open 24/7. So Port McNeil is kind of the central one. If someone's been evacuated from Alert Bay, they go to Port McNeil before anything else. So it's that extra time for people on the islands to get to Port Hardy. I wish it was different.
Yeah.
But
That we at the airport.
what's that?
That we at the airport.
Yeah, we do have an airport.
Big thing.
Anyhow. So we have some information and announcements. Just want to remind people from 5 to 7 tomorrow night, there's the harm reduction and naloxone training event that's open to the public. You do not have to pre-register, you can go. The fair start tomorrow night at Vancouver Island Regional Library. And then our next council meeting, April 9th. And we have a long weekend, so I'm sure the staff at the municipal hall are really looking forward to having some time off.
4 days.
As other people are too, even those that are retired.
I'm not, don't look at me.
Semi-retired.
And the word today was mayor.
Oh,
It's
was
true,
it?
it's true.
I heard a message in action when I did it.
I haven't done it for a while. That's too funny.
Mayor.
So we don't have a notice of in camera. We have a motion to adjourn. Councilor Dugas, that hand's been going up a lot tonight.
Well, you gotta practice, right?
Questions pertaining to the agenda? Any questions? Tammy?